6 yachts, 1 guy. These things burn more cash every year than some whole countries. And I'm not kidding. One of them costs $40 million just to hang out in the water. When I heard that, yachts just stopped sounding cool. Didn't they for you too? Why do these boats feel like getaway vehicles now? And who exactly said this was fine while the rest of us are just sitting here watching from the dock? Let's kick off with number 6, Rising Sun. Let's not mess around. Rising Sun is basically a hotel that floats. 82 rooms. That's not a typo. 82 rooms. This ship is 138 meters long. That's 454 feet, making it longer than a football field and taller than a lot of buildings if you stood it up. The gross tonnage, almost 7,800 GT, basically means you could fit an office block inside. It's not a boat, it's a private city on water. But here's where it gets weird. You'd think with all that space you'd be able to throw wild parties for 100 friends, right? Wrong. Rising Sun holds just 16 to 18 guests, but guess how many staff there are? 45. So for every guest, there are nearly 3 crew members. It's like each person gets their own personal hotel team. Chefs, housekeepers, engineers, and who knows what else. All making sure you never even have to open your own soda. It's powered by 4 massive MTU engines. And this thing can go up to 28 knots, which is about 52 kilometers per hour on the water. That's pretty much as fast as a highway truck. Want to know what it costs to keep all this moving? Every year between $25 and $40 million just to keep the lights on, the staff paid, the flowers fresh, and the fuel tanks full. Seriously, that's more than what entire towns spend to run every school and hospital. Step inside and you get amenities that put most resorts to shame. A full-size basketball court that doubles as a helipad, a climate-controlled wine room, a full spa, gym, cinema, even glass walls that wrap around the main deck so you can watch the sunset melt straight into the ocean. Real names you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, Oprah, Paul McCartney, they've all stayed here. Boat International once called it a floating hotel, and that might actually undersell it. But here's where the story takes a twist. In 2020, during the early days of the global lockdown, Geffen posted a photo on Instagram. Sunset, Grenadines, hoping everybody is staying safe. It was meant to be peaceful, but the internet lost its mind. Suddenly, Rising Sun became a meme, the poster child for billionaires escaping while everyone else was stuck inside. One picture and this ship went from just a symbol of wealth to a lightning rod for outrage. Here's the kicker. Rising Sun wasn't Geffen's only yacht. He once had another, almost as big, almost as famous, just hanging around as his spare. But compared to what came next, even a floating hotel feels almost normal. Wait until you see number 5, Pelorus. Now try to wrap your head around this. Imagine you're so rich you buy a 115-meter, 377-foot super yacht and then treat it like a spare car. That's the real story behind Pelorus. Launched in 2003 by Lorsen, at the time it was one of the biggest yachts on Earth. 7 decks, space for 24 guests and a whopping 46 crew. Think about that ratio. That's almost 2 staff for every single guest. But Pelorus's origin story is pure billionaire logic. A Saudi businessman wanted to stretch his small 72-meter yacht, and designer Tim Haywood just said, "Why not build a bigger one from scratch?" That's how Pelorus was born. Just build an entirely new ship because stretching the old one seemed like too much trouble. Pelorus soon landed in the hands of Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, who took things up several notches. He loaded it with armored glass, installed 2 helipads, fitted out the decks with security tech, and even hired armed guards. The message? This is a fortress at sea. No one's getting on unless he says so. But it didn't end there. After Abramovich's divorce, news broke that his ex-wife Irina received Pelorus as part of the settlement, only to flip it for $200 to $300 million to David Geffen. Geffen didn't hang on to it long either. He sold it to a UAE royal. Here's the wild part. Pelorus had been bouncing around the richest circles for 2 decades and is still for sale, currently listed at around £160 million. Let that sink in. A used superyacht holding its value for 20 years when most luxury cars lose half their worth the moment you drive them off the lot. Why? Because in this world, the right name on the side and the right level of excess means the price barely drops. For a while, Geffen owned Rising Sun and Pelorus at the same time. 2 yachts, both over 100 meters, both requiring separate crews, separate fuel tanks, separate fortunes to maintain. And yet, for the super rich, this isn't the finish line. It's just the starting point. Because in their world, downsizing still means living larger than any of us could ever imagine. Number 4 will make you rethink downsizing forever. Ready for the weirdest billionaire problem you'll ever hear? Larry Ellison, Oracle founder and the original owner of Rising Sun, decided one day that his 454-foot yacht was too much work. Too big, too complicated, too hard. So what did he do? He downsized to a 288-foot yacht called Musashi. Now, for most people, Musashi would be a dream home that floats. It fits 18 guests and about 24 crew with a volume of 2,463 GT. That's still the size of a small cruise ship. Just, Ellison's version of taking it easy. It cruises at up to 21 knots, and with full tanks, it can cross 6,000 nautical miles. That's the Atlantic, no sweat. When you're this rich, range isn't about road trips. It's about which continent you'll wake up next to. Musashi's design is sleek, modern, and understated compared to the sometimes gaudy interiors of other super yachts. The interior is all glass and steel, with a central glass elevator, a spiral staircase, and open-plan lounges. There's a private cinema, a pool, and even a basketball court that doubles as a party deck. Windows wrap around for full panoramic views, and at sunset, the whole place glows. But here's the detail most people miss. Musashi isn't about showing off. It's about freedom. The ability to leave whenever, wherever, for however long you want. Billionaires like Ellison and Geffen count freedom in fuel range, helicopter capacity, and whether or not their main deck can host a rock band on short notice. Ellison eventually handed Rising Sun over to David Geffen. For a while, both men were sailing their own floating empires, crossing paths in St. Bart's or Portofino, anchoring in the same exclusive coves. You'd think that was the top of the food chain, but then a new beast showed up. One with sails that scrape the sky and a price tag that makes even these giants look small. Here is number 3, Koru. Not all billionaire toys run on diesel. Some use wind and history. Enter Koru, the biggest sailing yacht in the world, owned by Amazon's Jeff Bezos. At 127 meters, 417 feet, it's almost as long as Rising Sun, but the vibe is completely different. This is old-school luxury on a supersized scale. 3 massive masts that tower 70 meters high. If you saw it from the beach, you'd think a tall ship from the past just time-traveled to today, only 100 times richer. Koru can carry 18 guests in 9 cabins with up to 40 crew. What makes it wild is the support vessel. Abiona, a separate 75-meter shadow yacht, follows behind, carrying the helicopter, extra staff, jet skis, tenders, and literally every toy you can imagine. The running costs for Koru and Abiona together? $25 to $30 million a year. The build cost? Koru alone was rumored to cost $500 million, and Abiona another $75 million. But it's not just about the hardware. Koru's walls are made of smart glass that can go opaque at the touch of a button. The pool has a glass bottom, there's a hot tub on deck, a cinema inside, and, of course, Bezos's personal gym. The name Koru means new beginning in Maori, and up front there's a sculpted figurehead, a nod to the goddess Freya, which tells you even the decoration is custom, meaningful, and global. And let's not forget the drama. In 2022, Koru needed to pass under a historic bridge in Rotterdam. The city considered dismantling part of the bridge. Locals protested, saying, "No way," and Bezos' team had to find a workaround. This is the level we're talking about. When a single yacht can change city plans, you know you've left the normal world behind. Koru and Abiona sail the same celebrity routes, St. Bart's, Portofino, the French Riviera. But the headlines are always about more than just sun and sea. They're about power and the endless game of building something bigger. Which brings us to a yacht that's all about being seen and then disappearing. Number 2 quietly breaks all the rules. EOS. Some yachts scream for attention, others hide in plain sight. EOS does both. Owned by media legend Barry Diller and fashion icon Diane von Furstenberg, EOS is a 93-meter, 305-foot sailing yacht that's been turning heads and avoiding them since 2006. EOS's 3 masts stretch almost 61 meters into the sky, making it one of the tallest private yachts anywhere. The ship itself is a lesson in privacy and subtlety. There's no flashy gold trim, no wild parties on Instagram. Inside, the ship is built for comfort, calm, and keeping secrets. It houses up to 16 guests and a crew of 21, which includes 2 chefs, a team of engineers, and staff trained to stay invisible. But there's one detail you can't miss. At the bow, a handcrafted sculpture of Diane von Furstenberg herself, sculpted by An Jung, stares down the ocean. Harper's Bazaar called EOS a moving work of art. That's not just rich person talk. A literal statue on your yacht means this isn't just a boat, it's a statement. It's a floating castle with the flag replaced by a face. Most of what goes on board EOS is a mystery. The hull is aluminum, the decks are teak, and the crew is famous for saying nothing. Superyacht Times calls EOS one of the most private vessels in the world. It rarely shows up in big ports and almost never lets photographers close. When you're on board, the goal isn't to be seen, it's to disappear from the world for a while. For some, that's the ultimate flex. Yet, for all its stealth, EOS can still make headlines. It's been spotted in Venice, in New York, in the south of France. Always just out of reach. The deeper story? Sometimes the richest people in the world don't want you to know where they are. Sometimes the flex is disappearing. But the final yacht in this list? It's the opposite. It's loud, proud, and literally armed for anything. Ready for number 1? Octopus. Let's finish with a legend. Octopus is a different category of yacht. It's a floating navy, a rescue ship, a deep-sea lab, and a billionaire's party palace all in one. Built in 2003 for Paul Allen, the late Microsoft co-founder, Octopus is 126 meters, 413 feet, and weighs in at a ridiculous 9,900 GT. That's not just big, that's carry your own submarines big. How many guests? Up to 26 in 13 staterooms. Crew? Over 60. But that's just the start. Octopus carries 2 helicopter pads, a 36-meter landing craft, that's longer than most city buses, a dive center with a decompression chamber, and 2 submarines. One of those is a remotely operated vehicle that can dive thousands of meters down. The ship can go 12,500 nautical miles on a single fuel up. That's the entire Pacific round trip without stopping. But Octopus isn't just for show. Paul Allen used it for real missions, search and rescue, ocean research, and even helping discover World War II shipwrecks like the Musashi. Wikipedia reports Octopus was loaned out for exploration projects, scientific research, and rescue missions. It's a rare billionaire toy that actually did some good, not just for Allen's friends, but for science. Inside, the yacht is just as wild. There's a cinema, a full library, a sports bar, an indoor pool that turns into a dance floor, and rooms lined with rare art. The running costs? About $20 to $30 million per year, and the original build cost was $200 million. What sets Octopus apart is the attitude. It's not about hiding, it's about going places no one else can, above and below the water. In a world where most billionaire toys are about showing off, Octopus is about what you can actually do with all that money if you're willing to push the limits. So next time you hear the phrase billionaire yacht, don't just picture sunsets and champagne. Think of a floating city loaded with gear for finding lost worlds, a mobile fortress, a party zone, and sometimes a rescue ship. If any part of this made you stop and think, good. Because there's so much more happening behind these yachts than anyone sees on TV or Instagram. These are floating empires, symbols of power, privacy, and sometimes quiet rebellion against the world outside. They're not just about having more, they're about living by different rules in a world only a handful will ever board. So stay sharp, hit the next video, and let's keep digging into how all of this connects. Because when it comes to the world of billionaires, every yacht is just the tip of the iceberg.